Yeah, great. We launched last week the Euroseed 50, which is a new initiative to map out the 50 most promising early stage startup across Europe and publish a list. When we thought about this in the startup ecosystem, the attention is often on the late stage companies and the scale ups, the big logos. And we wanted to turn that around and put the spotlight on the future, sort of the next generation of innovators. And thus we mapped out the 50 most promising early stage, so seed stage companies in Europe, and did so with recommendations from lots of seed funds, from lots of angels, and then curated a jury to sort of like pick the 50 best ones of people like Jason Lemkin, Gloria Boyerline, Midi from XDeepMind, and a few other leading angels, and curated this list. And the idea is simply to give the startups, the future generation more exposure. We know it's hard to stand out across 30,000 early stage startups in Europe. And we want to help those companies get the right exposure and focus and attract talent, customers, funding. And that's how we came up with the Creandum Euroseed 50. Yeah.
Absolutely. And how are you or how were the jury judging these companies? Was it a look at the team? Was it a look at the financials, their growth? How are they being assessed?
At the early stage, the seed stage, it's unfortunately there's a little bit less data points than you have at later stage. So there were no financials or anything like that. But all these people are very active angels in the ecosystem. And so what we did is with input and recommendation from pre-seed and seed funds and angels before, we created like a long list of a bit over 100 startups across Europe. And then from this long list that we curated with the input, we let the jury pick sort of like their favorites. And they know some of the companies, they know many of the founders of the companies, and basically read through what they're doing and what their conviction is. Some are invested or angels in some of these companies. And through that, we try to get to the best insight, sort of like of having a very curated list, long list, and then making sure we pick with a diverse sort of like jury the right 50 ones.
Yeah, amazing.
But of course, it's it's still seed. Yeah. So there's you can't be fully right always at seed, but I think this is a very, very promising list, and maybe there's the next Spotify or Revolut in this list, and there's a solid likelihood for that.
And is there any plans to track this list over time to see how on the money you were in 1 year, 5 year, 10 years?
Yeah, it will be an annual list. So we're gonna do the same thing next year again. And we're also tracking and published some of the insights in the blogs around that list of across geo, across segments those companies are building, and some of it is interesting stuff. I mean, on the geo side, I think there's, for example, no surprise. 19 out of the 50 companies come from the UK. Then it's Germany and France being sort of like the second biggest countries present with around 10 companies. And then it's the Nordics and Spain following. The Nordics always have been, present ecosystem, and Spain has been one on the rise. And then of course, there's Benelux and CE. But that we're gonna look at, and I think we're gonna also track how this will track over or change over time, which might be some relevant or interesting insights.
Yeah, amazing. I'm kind of like shaking here and quite eager to get into some conversations about Lovable. Peter, you're probably bored hearing people ask you questions about Lovable, but I've been following them for a while. I have to ask, so what's it like working with Lovable?
Lovable, it's no surprise you're asking. Let's say they get very good attention these days, or for the past 8 months. No, it's an extraordinary company. And it's we've rarely, if ever, seen that growth in a company in Europe. And Anton is very vocal also about publishing his revenue numbers on ARR numbers and LinkedIn, and going from 0 to 75 million in ARR within 7 months is simply stellar and amazing to see. And how is it to work with Lovable? I mean, we try to support the company as good as we can and with full capacity. My colleague Frederick is the one in our team, sort of like working closely with Anton and the team. And then, of course, things like our talent team, trying to support them in their hiring efforts, etc. But I think it's, to that question, it's probably fun and amazing to see as they really have the shot of building a generational company in Europe.
I'm interested to understand what's different, with Lovable to other kind of portfolio companies. Is it the speed that they're going at? Obviously, like, they're growing so quickly, but is that because of their execution? We had Will Kaplan from Tano, and he was saying that they're basically like, the execution is crazy. The amount that they can get into the data and understanding where they're actually moving the needle is unbelievable. Yeah. What's your kind of thoughts on that? And can you see that, actually working with them?
Yeah. I think if we look at maybe what got Lovable to the traction that they are, when we met them, we knew the company since since inception or since their first pre-seed round, and have been following Anton over the time, and then sort of like leaned in to lead the Series A round in end of last year, and shortly after the launch. And I think what you could see back then at the launch was within a week since they launched, you had this addicting product. You had an incredible amount of instant gratification and user love. I guess you all have used it, but it's like a magical feel if you're a non-technical user or you're a business user.
I feel like a wizard.
I, for example, the first thing I created a website for my mom, and she was like amazed. And I think that wow effect is what people really got. And I think what they've really nailed is, in the beginning, but also later on, is the flywheel effect. And if you remember, there's this edit in Lovable button, and I think it was a masterpiece in like driving user acquisition, but also in education of users. And I think what is different is, I think the speed of, to other products or companies, is the speed in which you see this extremely strong signals of product market fit, where you see this massive amount of user love. And then, of course, as a result of the virality that was partially, that was also driven by them, it's like a very unusual high pull from the market and strong product market fit. And I think that led to, the very strong traction. And of course, then it's, executing on that, continuing to grow that, continuing to build a superior product, etc.
Yeah. I think you touched on something really interesting earlier. So, we discussed them so much on the show, right? We're always talking about their distribution, their viral coefficient. Your great phrase there that you mentioned there, Peter, is like it's an instant gratification product. Like you, as soon as you start using it, you get value out of it. And I had the same with granola. When I first used granola and it summarized my first meeting, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I think it's something a lot more common in these consumer focused apps or entities. You mentioned, and this is part of what I'm coming on to, how good Anton is at distributing growth metrics on socials. He's a huge spokesman for the company. He's constantly tweeting out.
Yeah. I don't know how he has the time.
How does he have the time? It's like this cool graph, or like this customer just made X amount ARR doing this, or here's our hockey stick growth curve, and like he does such a good job of it. I'd be curious to understand how much of the inbound has come just from his X account or his LinkedIn. But do you think that that's a trend that we're seeing in the B2C space, that founders should be more front-facing? Founders should be on Twitter tweeting stuff out. Founders should be on LinkedIn building in public.
Yeah, I think it is a trend that we're seeing in the market. I think that LinkedIn, Twitter, or the socials have been really become core platforms for acquisition. The reach you get there is incredible. I haven't checked, Anton's Twitter follower last time I checked on LinkedIn, I think it was more than 60,000 or like 60 to 70,000 LinkedIn followers in a very short time, which is quite a lot and gives a lot of reach. And the interesting thing here is that he's a very strong technical founder who has been early in the AI wave. He's been with Sana or Depict. And that you see a founder like him that comes from the technical side being so extremely good at that on sort of like the marketing and showing user stories and making it very tangible to follow the Lovable journey online is, I think, a rare combination.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask, you've done a lot of investments in the SaaS space. Do you see Lovable as a threat to a lot of the SaaS platforms or applications that you've invested in or that you see? Do you think people, do you think that idea that you can build SaaS tools easily and cheaply on Lovable presents a threat to a lot of the existing SaaS businesses out there?
So far they are more making our SaaS companies more productive in sort of like shipping product in using it internally, and I speak with several of our companies that are using it internally to work on product, to ship stuff, to prototype, to iterate, or to enable business users. And I think for there we see more productivity gain with it. I think there's for building software, there's much more than just the building part of it. So all these sort of like coding tools go into the building part or the execution part of it. But if I, for example, think about one of our portfolio companies, which is Factorial, which is a unicorn from Barcelona in the HR space, there's local regulations in each market. There's core HR knowledge. There's payroll knowledge. There's sort of like different tax things like shift planning. Like it's a very complex thing and actually a complex product to build in like local regulations and compliance for companies. And I think that's it's different things that you need, and it's different modes you build up also beyond just the coding exercise.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I know you guys led earlier this month, Creandum led a £5 million seed into Superscale, which is creating these sort of viral short form content based off a prompt. It seems like an AI UGC sort of play, a super hot space in the B2C realm. We were speaking with Will Kaplan from Tano the other day, who's building he's building like an AI employee that can basically do end-to-end influencer marketing for you, so that it will source individuals for you, and it will also close the deals. It runs the whole thing end to end, negotiations, price stuff, everything. This space is fascinating to me, and it's something that we experimented with at Convergence when we were looking at how can we just flood TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, all of the short form realm with content from us, but we don't have the time to be doing TikTok dances in front of our iPhones, for half the week. What do you think about this space? Obviously, you're bullish on it if you guys are doing a 5 million seed check in there, but participating and leading. What do you think about this space?
So I think we are bullish on the space, and I mean, if Creandum makes an investment into Superscale that plays in the space, obviously we spend a lot of time looking at the area and looking at the space, thinking about the opportunity there, and concluded very positively on it. And it's always the combination of, in Superscale, we think we have a team that is exceptionally well positioned to execute on this, and I think especially in marketing. In the marketing space, a highly, let's say, crafted and very strong product is key, and the founders there come from Patrick was a VP product before, and has sort of like founded also a product centric company before with Mapify, and I think it's these are the things you want to see in the category. But I mean, overall, I think we will see, continued thriving of like these AI workers, and if we some of the workflows you describe, I mean, you can make them so much shorter and quicker with an AI marketing platform like Superscale, and you can create ads in minutes and UGC in minutes, and you can chat with super scale, about the input, about your brand, etc. And it learns all these things and helps you create the right output for it. But in the future, of course, they try to become much more and also become sort of the AI CMO beyond that. And so, yeah, I think what we always have to put into perspective of where products are today and where products can be in 18 to 24 months or more when the underlying LLMs have become even better. And I think it will be very powerful.
Just on that then, do you think AI is like just fully democratizing content creation, or do you think it's like more just this is just a next iteration of content creation and influencer marketing? So you say like, in 18, 24 months, where do you think these products will be? Will it be just fully democratized content creation? You will never know what's kind of AI and what's not. Is that what you're saying?
I personally don't have a definitive answer on it. Let's say I'd need to talk to my two colleagues who have been sort of like doing our thesis when they worked on the content creation part for Superscale. But I mean, what is for sure is we will see much. I mean, we're seeing it already. There's charts showing you the percentage of AI generated content on socials, and it will only increase. To what degree, sort of like it needs to be flagged. It needs to be said that it's AI or not. I mean, it's hard to differentiate or hard to enforce that. But we'll see a lot of AI content and democratization probably of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, Peter, we're running out of time, but before we let you go, I really want to ask a couple of questions about your career. You've had a super interesting, very varied career, spending time building and operating a kind of like high growth startup in, I think it was Southeast Asia first, working in big tech at Google, if I'm not mistaken, and also doing a stint at Bain. And then, of course, joining Creandum, building out their office in Germany, rising the ranks very quickly and becoming a partner. If somebody asked you what bit of advice would you give to a young person looking to break into VC, what would you say?
I think it's try to get the mix of analytical and operational experience. I mean, there's different routes into venture. You can be an operator working in a startup. You can be technical. You can be non-technical. Some people come from consulting or banking. And you need to choose which way is right for you. But I think the ideal is if you can actually have, a mix of like analytical skills, potentially technical skills, and then some startup experience. So if I would graduate today, I would probably try to, get a bit of startup experience and see if I can get also analytical or technical experience as well. And, do that for 2-3 years and then break into venture. That's probably how I would do it today.
And once you're in, what's the best way to get to the top?
The best way to the top is like be very, very passionate about it. Like really, if you're very passionate about it, you will read into stuff. You will discuss as much with your friends, with your founders, with colleagues about it. Work thesis driven, and you will then enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, you will also work likely very hard and try to be sort of like the best partner for founders, and B, the one that sees a lot of things and spots new companies and trends early. And so, but it really comes down to passion and sort of like your willingness to really lean into it and spend time with it. And yeah.
Amazing.
Good stuff.
Amazing.
Well, look, Peter, thank you very much for joining us. We've loved having you. Let's stay in touch.